Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the eCommerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce, and today I have a true legend on the podcast. When this man tweets, the whole internet stops. When he posts on LinkedIn, people gather around their computers and they read and they consume because they want to know what is the wisdom that Drew Sanocki is laying out today.
I'm not sure about that, but my LinkedIn account was down for a week. And so the world continued.
The world kept on trucking. But seriously, like I love your post. You're one of my favorite follows on social media. We go way back. We met now, like, man, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago through one of Ezra Firestone's events. But Drew Sanocki, co-founder, co-CEO of PostPilot, which we'll talk about a little bit. I am a full disclosure, I'm an investor in PostPilot. I believe in it. It's pretty awesome. But Drew, you've got this amazing perspective. One, you're the first guy that I learned the details of private equity from, and so I'll always thank you for that. That was a great education. But you got this rich history. You've owned multiple e-commerce brands. You helped turn around, I think it's 5, 8, or 9-figure e-commerce brands from struggling to profitable. And so, man, I'm excited to talk to you about how to grow e-commerce, how to turn things around. I think your wisdom and your insight is extremely valuable right now. And so, man, welcome to the show. And how's it going?
It's great to be here. I think all that stuff is just because I'm old. You could just sum that up by saying he's old, he's been here, he's done stuff. Yeah.
That is awesome. Which also we, mutual friend, close friend for both of us, Ezra Firestone. You also had an epic video where you kind of poked fun at Ezra just a little bit in all his awesomeness. Is that published anywhere, or has that been sworn to keep? Yeah,
the one where I had my shirt off through the whole thing. Yeah. No, that hasn't been published.
That was
anywhere.
Not going to see the light of day. Got it. Well, just everybody can take my word for it. It's hilarious. Ezra loved it too. So really, really good. So man, so tell us a little bit about PostPilot, and then we're going to dive into 3 big ways to grow e-commerce. We're going to talk a little bit about CVO, and if you don't know what CVO is, you're about to learn. I want to dive into some of your turnaround stories as well. But first, what is PostPilot, and why are you so excited to be running the show there?
Yeah, PostPilot is a direct mail platform for e-commerce. So our goal is to make direct mail a viable channel, a viable, profitable channel for a lot of brands, D2C brands. And it's working, which is great. We started it maybe 5 years ago, and I think it really just kicked into overdrive in 21 when a lot of brands had trouble with Facebook. iOS came out, and I think marketers kind of realized they needed to diversify. They couldn't be reliant on one channel anymore. They needed to kind of hedge their bets and have multiple things working. And PostPilot was sort of there and ready to welcome them with open arms into direct mail.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm a bit old school myself. So pre-Google ads, pre-OMG, we did some direct mail. I did a lot of TV, radio as well. But I've always loved direct mail because it's that really personal, one-on-one communication. It feels like that if you can get someone to actually open the mail and pay attention and read it and stuff. But what's so cool is, like, when I was first doing direct mail back in the early 2000s, you would go to your mailbox and that thing was crammed full of marketing mail, aka junk mail. But now I go to my mailbox and get stuff out, and there's like 2 or 3 things. So if there's a postcard there from PostPilot, from one of my favorite brands, or from a brand I've never heard of, I pay attention to it, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stats around direct mail. It's like 90% of it gets read, as opposed to whatever email the open rates are.
Yeah, maybe 20%. 50%. Yeah, maybe as you're really, really good and an engaged list is 50%, but the averages are like 20-some, yeah.
Yeah, so people open it. It's not as competitive. I mean, most people, when you say direct mail, they say, oh, it's like junk mail. I just throw it away. But, the data suggests it's not the case. People open it, it sits around, they throw it on their coffee table, they give it to other people in the household. It's a channel that's really 100 years old. It's worked for 100 years. It pioneered a lot of the segmentation and targeting approaches that we now use on Facebook and on email, specifically around recency and frequency of purchase. But it's it's never been user friendly, right? Like in 2000, I sent my first direct mail campaign at a furniture brand I was running, and it was like you had to download a list from your cart and find a printer, and then talk about paper and negotiate that, and then print it, and then attribution was kind of like try to back into attribution and did the campaign work. And it was really, that was the genesis of PostPilot, like that poor user experience. Like, how do we make it as friendly as running a Facebook ad campaign or sending an email?
Yeah, it is so true, right? Like some of the early pioneers of list building and the way you could buy lists of people that have purchased other products, or, is it Equifax and some of these other, ratings agencies and stuff like that. The ability to find direct mail lists, like that started first, but now some of that, powers the targeting that's available on Facebook or Google or other places. So, it was definitely a precursor, but you're right, always difficult. But PostPilot has made that easy. So really automating direct mail so it's as easy as your email in Klaviyo. And it's just, I hear nothing but good from the customers that I know that use it.
It works. I mean, it's rare that it'll be your top channel. And there's certainly a couple brands out there where it's number one. But I think we've done our job if it's like in the toolkit for most marketers.
Totally.
It's in your top 5. It's like you got SEO, you got email, you got paid, you got direct mail, and they're all cranking for you. Yeah. The app started with kind of this use case on retention. So it's a unique channel in that on the retention side, direct mail is email. Like, think of it the same way. You've got the address. You are extending anything that works in email to a bigger audience because it's sort of a surprise, comes as a surprise to a lot of brands. Not everybody's subscribed to the list. Like, not every one of your previous buyers is subscribed. Totally. So if you see something working in email, you just extend it to those who are not subscribed or have unsubscribed. And on the acquisition side, it's a little bit more like Facebook, where you get into the realm of you can do a lookalike. You can look at your top performing customers, you can feed it into the algorithm at PostPilot, and you get a high predictive model audience that you can now prospect to. You can layer on direct mail attributes like household income and geography, or whether they're a recent mover, and then you can do prospecting. So, the apps, I think we've got a serious tailwind in the environment we are right now. And I'm the first to say we're sort of lucky, right? We're right product, right time, where acquisitions just become so expensive through every other channel, that due to the end of third-party cookies, or even just like increased competition, that it's made direct mail a lot more appealing.
Totally, yeah. Increased competition, and as privacy changes, move the needle a little bit. iOS 17 is coming out before long, which there's going to be some link tracking that's going away. Just things are going to get harder and harder, I think, in some ways online. But I love the way you frame that, right? Direct mail, probably not going to be your number one new customer acquisition channel, but maybe it could be top 5. And probably your competitors aren't using it. Other people in your space are not using it, but you can. And I do like that approach of starting with retention and remarketing, and then moving upper funnel a little bit as you go, which is awesome. So want to circle back to direct mail a little bit, kind of as we wrap up in a few. But I want to get into, you had a post not long ago on LinkedIn, and it was an amazing post. It brought me back to my early days of marketing. I've always been a Jay Abraham fan. Like I listened to, this is going to date me, but maybe not totally accurately so. I had a bunch of Jay Abraham cassette tapes.
Yeah,
but
same.
I listened when cassette tapes were kind of dated, but I got it from my uncle. But dude, I listened to those. I wore those things out, man. I listen to them all the time. But he talks about 3 ways to grow a business. There's really only 3 ways to grow a business, and that applies to D2C brands as well. So I want to kind of break this down. But what are those 3 ways, and what's kind of your take on that?
Yeah, probably like you. I ordered the Jay Abraham tapes, and I was at the time struggling to grow my first brand, Design Public, furniture retailer. And there's so much you can focus on as a marketer. There's a zillion things. And whatever tape I put in, he said, there are 3. There's really only 3 things that drive the top line. And it's acquire more customers, get them to purchase more, so AOV, right? Increase the AOV, and then get them to buy longer, so retention, right? Like get them to purchase more per customer.
LTV, really, retention.
Yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Number of customers, AOV, and F, which is frequency of purchase or number of purchases per customer. And it was sort of eye-opening to me. There's power in that in a couple different ways. The first is you realize to double your business, you don't have to double any one thing. I think like a Facebook marketer is like, I need twice the customers, I need twice the conversions, but that's not the case. Like you need only 30% more in each of those three, and the results multiply. You're going to double the business. And it's like, can I double my acquisition efforts this quarter? That's a tall ask, but
it's a big ask.
Yeah, but could I increase it by 30% and increase AOV 30% and retention 30%? Maybe. And then the results just kind of flow through. So that's the first thing that was interesting. The second thing is,
and even looking at smaller lifts, right? And I think this math is right. Even if you look at a 10% increase, so what if I just got 10% better at new customer acquisition? Or what if I just raise my AOV by 10%? What if I just increase the LTV or the frequency by 10%? That's like a 33% lift, I believe. And so like even little improvements in each of those areas can have a really nice impact, and it makes it seem more doable, more approachable, rather than I've got a million things to do. How do I decide?
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think most brands just go for number one. They just go to increase
just new customers.
And the problem is that's expensive. It's the most expensive
and
lever.
Only getting more expensive, right? That your CPAs are not going to go down, right? We do a lot with Google and YouTube. CPMs don't go down from year to year, right? Same with Facebook ads. CPMs are not going down over time. They're going up. So new customer acquisition is going up as well.
Optimize what you have before you multiply. Ramit Sethi always says that. You got to optimize before you multiply.
Optimize before you multiply. I like that.
Yeah. And he also another guy who studied under Jay Abraham, but like optimize AOV. You get your upsells, your cross sells, you get your shipping fees, like everything you need to do to sort of hack AOV, incentives to add into the basket. You get that done. Easy to control, cheap to do. You move on to the third one, retention, your win-back campaigns, your second purchase campaigns, whatever. You're about get all that squared away. And then when you turn to retention, the ROIs are going to be better because you've built this net, right, around your customer base. So every dollar you now spend on acquisition is going to have more of a return. So,
yeah, I love that. And what's also about both, raising AOV and improving LTV or improving frequency, is that allows you to spend more money in customer acquisition, right? And one of my other favorite quotes from Dan Kennedy, also kind of a godfather, so to speak, of modern marketing. He talks about, the person that can spend the most to acquire a new customer wins, right? Not the person that can spend the least, because that's not a winning formula long term. But the person that can afford to spend the most wins because costs are going up. But if you get a better AOV, better LTV, you can invest more to acquire a customer, which is pretty 100%. Awesome. Yeah.
So when we talk about turning around businesses, that's part of every fund wants a 30, 60, 90. They want to know there's a 5-year plan to turn around the business, but what are you going to do for me in the first 90 days? Because every investor in those funds, these are humans. They want to see the results. They want to see okay, this investment is working, right? These guys got this thing, or this team got this thing cash flowing early. So it's part of my 30, 60, 90 whenever I take over a business is tackle those bottom two rungs first. Let's optimize AOV and frequency right out of the gates. Usually in month 1, month 2, we can start overhauling acquisition.
What are some of the things you go in and do relatively quickly to improve AOV?
I think that's low-hanging fruit stuff. It's increase your free shipping threshold, or you just want to create more incentives to add more products to the cart. So that could be a higher free shipping threshold. You could have discounts if you add multiple items together. Promos to get the AOV up.
Bundles and such.
Yeah, probably the quickest and easy one that private equity loves is just
raise prices.
Yes, increase your prices. I feel like most entrepreneurs chronically sort of underprice their offering, and they underestimate how inelastic the demand is, so they could just increase the price.
And I think that's something that a lot of people are scared of, and obviously you should be thoughtful about this and then maybe test it and don't just do it blindly. But sometimes even like a 10% increase in price can have a massive impact on profits, right? So say you got a 40% margin and you increase price by 10%, that's what, like a 25% lift in, if I think I did the math right. It's a big lift in profits, like 25% lift in profits. And so and now in the current environment, everybody's used to price increases. It probably won't phase your core customers. And so, that's an easy thing to do. And PE groups love good margins, but we all do, or we all should.
oVertone is the hair care brand that we turned around most recently. You're involved with that one. Yeah. And the OMG team. And I don't know if you remember, Brett, like when we acquired that was what we did in the first month, was like, we just jammed through a price increase.
Totally.
And, it worked. Like
it didn't slow things down at all.
No, conversion rates did not drop. Revenue went up. It was perfect. So it worked.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Consider raising prices. Simple, often effective, and probably never been a better time to do that than now in most cases.
Yep.
What about improving frequency or improving LTV? And probably there's a tie into PostPilot here as well. But how do we increase frequency?
Yeah, I mean, I think there there's a lot of ways. You're talking about increasing retention. So retention is two things. It's keeping people buying longer over time, or you can go for more velocity within the same period of time, or both, right? So it's a little nuanced. It's often rare to increase the rate that people buy. It's usually more often you can increase the time over which they buy.
It's hard to get someone to use more hair color, right? Or to use more,
I mean, it depends on the product.
Cream. How do I use more skin cream?
When you run out, you run out.
Yeah.
But so the first things we do there are just, everybody should have a second purchase campaign. It's like, if you look at the numbers, most businesses in e-commerce, in direct-to-consumer, lose money on the first purchase, right? I mean, Casper shows us this on a public level. They've been doing it for a long time, but the key is like you need people to buy multiple times because cost of acquisition is so high. So that first purchase is rarely profitable. Certainly there are exceptions. It just behooves all the businesses to get a second purchase, right? We got to get that second or third purchase. So let's engineer it. You look at your data. What do people typically buy? When they buy the pillow, do they buy the bedspread next? When they buy the khakis, do they buy the button down? That answer lives in your...
Buy the skin cream, now buy the mascara.
Yeah.
Buy the blue hair color. You're probably going to try green as well.
That data is in your transactional data, right? You look at your history, you see it, you talk to your customer support people, like that answer's there, and then just build it into your marketing programs. Like if somebody buys, they are going to get the email, the direct mail campaign, the Facebook retargeting campaign, whatever, for that second product.
Google Display, Google YouTube. Let's not forget Google.
Let's not forget it. Yeah, I mean, it should all be synced, right? I mean, these are just like delivery channels for one message. Another way is to, you look at, there's a kind of an advanced name for it called intra-purchase latency, which is like, how often does it take for my first customer to come back and buy again?
Dude, that's such a fancy word.
It's a very fancy word.
Latency.
In the Navy, we used to say, you were a 50-pound head if you used a word like that, which is just like
that's a 50-pound head word for sure. Yeah,
some big dude with like a massive cranium. But you want to figure this out. What's the average?
I'm going to start asking everybody now that I mean, like, what's your inter-purchase latency for your product?
What's the average time between purchases?
Yeah.
Small ad here. If you add PostPilot to your Shopify app, we will tell you in the app, like you're not paying for anything. It's just you'll get the report with yours.
Awesome. Yep.
Because Shopify doesn't tell you out of the box. But say it's 30 days. Customers typically buy on day 1 and day 30. If they're going to come back, they buy on day 30. So another big mistake I see brands making is they immediately go discount and promo after that first purchase. But if you look at the data, you got to assume that that customer is likely to come back for anything less than 30 days. They are still likely to come back and buy at full margin.
Right.
So general rule of thumb, for the first 30 days after purchase, only show other related products that they're likely to buy at full margin. Like this is now a shopper who only knows probably one or two of your product categories that they acquired, that they came in under. Show them what else you got and show it at full margin because she's likely to buy at full margin. It's only after that day 30 that she's becoming less and less likely to ever come back. And that's when you can get promotional. That's when you can have a discount ladder, which is, you start giving 10, 20, 30% off over time because she's on her way out, right? So it's just a great way to conserve promotional dollars and at the same time encourage that second purchase.
And I think it is really important. Like we do train our customers to perceive us a certain way. And there's a certain apparel brand that I buy. So actually, there's two. I'm going to contrast two apparel brands. They're actually quite similar. Men's fashion. One, I get a promotional, big, huge discount text like multiple times a week, plus a promotional email. Ads are all like save, big discount. And I really get tired of it. I kind of ignore it. But there's another brand, similar products, a little more premium. And they don't really do that. They're talking about products, talking about new color drops, they're talking about new launches. And it is interesting. My perception, even as a marketer, even though I understand all this stuff, my perception of one is very different than the other. And I think we train customers if we're too promotional heavy that I'm never going to buy a full retail now because I know, why would I? Like I would feel irresponsible if I bought a full retail with that first merchant because I know there's a discount coming at some point.
Yeah, and I would say that's another, when we talk about turnarounds, most of the turnarounds I've been involved with all have that in common.
Yeah.
There's this death spiral where revenue starts going down, and to counteract it, they're discounting, and they're discounting to the whole list. AutoAnything, Karmaloop would have lists of 5 million email recipients who got the same discount every day, and it was just like, spin the wheel, what's the discount going to be? And it's really a race to the bottom, because you just see that discount line getting bigger and bigger, and the financials, the margin gets smaller and smaller.
And you get addicted to the results from the sale, but then the next sale isn't quite as good, so you got to go deeper with the discount. And
I would say in database marketing, there's this other sort of rule of thumb, which is like, when you acquire a customer on a discount, he or she is likely to buy on a discount, is only going to buy on a discount again. Like you just brought in a discount shopper. Right. So keep that in mind. So when we acquired Karmaloop or acquired AutoAnything, I had to set the expectation with the investors. Like, it's going to take a year to turn over our customer base.
Yeah.
Because the customers that are in there right now, they are used to buying on discount, and you can't just turn it off. Like JCPenney was another very public example. You can't turn it off overnight. Like, they're in there. You either got to make the decision that now we're going to be a discount brand. It's going to be part of who we are, or it's going to take a year of weaning, of basically turning over your customer database, right? And replenishing the customers with a new group that's going to buy on something other than discount.
Yeah, it's so good. And I think you even shared a stat that I saw where likely the AOV or the amount you purchase goes down over time, right? So whatever you bought at to begin with, it's pretty common, right, for your second, third purchases to be less than that on average. And so if they came in at a discount, the next few purchases are going to be at a discount as well. And I think that is one of the fallacies. And I remember, this was like the pitch for Groupon way back in the day. I used to do some TV and radio advertising. I'd always hear the Groupon people pitching like, hey, yeah, you'll get them for free here, but that second and third purchase can be full price. So it's like, nah.
This is a discount not shopper. How it works.
Yeah.
In D2C, you see everybody who loves the spin the wheel promos. I'm gonna piss off every spin the wheel.
I was just talking about that with a UX guy earlier today. Like I hate those things. If they work, great, but I, as a shopper, hate them. Yeah.
Well, you throw one up, and of course, like, wow, we got, everybody's now signing up for our list and spinning the wheel. But it's just like, okay, I'll give everybody 20% off if you sign up for my list. And of course they're going to sign up for my list, but it's again, you're attracting a different kind of customer when you do that. So just look at the long term.
I can't remember where I heard this, but the way you bring them in is the way they behave.
Yeah.
Right? So the way you bring the customer in is the way they behave over the long haul, and so you got to be mindful of that. So you've kind of talked about a couple of these now. I want to kind of hear maybe about a few others or go deeper on these. You mentioned AutoAnything, which is pretty closely connected with you, kind of paying attention to that as that happened. Karmaloop, you talked about that. But yeah, what were a few of these turnaround stories, and are there any details you can share on how that went?
I don't know. It's I'm happy to share details. They're hard turning around. I didn't set out to be a turnaround artist, but I look back at my career.
It's kind of like saving a sinking ship, right? There's probably just always a problem popping up. You solve one problem, there's 15 more that you just discover or whatever.
Yeah, and you're never working on the sexiest business. They're always busted. They've got legacy IT stacks. That's another 30, 60, 90 thing. They're all operating typically or overspending on IT.
Yeah.
Because it's all custom. Now we're in this world where you go off the shelf. You just implement Shopify and CVO and PostPilot, right? You don't have to pay for a dev team to operate those things.
Yeah, self-hosted and stuff. Yeah, don't need that typically.
Yes, oVertone too had sort of a clunky headless Shopify integration that cost a hell of a lot more than just Shopify. So in every case, it's like simplify the IT, get back to the three multipliers on the revenue side. And there's like the team and culture part about just revamping the team and getting a team in place that can really execute. A lot around OKRs and EOS, which I know a lot of listeners use.
Yeah. I love both of those. Love EOS, Gino Wickman. Love OKRs. I love the book by John Doerr, Measure What Matters. But talk about that. How do you view OKRs, and how do you use them? And maybe explain what that is for people that don't know.
Yeah, OKRs are objectives and key results. They are just a way to essentially, it's management by objective. You're giving a team as a whole an objective for the quarter or for the year. And then you distill that down into key results that if you accomplish these 3 or 4 key results, you will accomplish the objective. If my objective is to win the Super Bowl, I want, a top-rated offense, a top-rated, defense, special teams, whatever. The
offensive line, defensive line. I need a quarterback. I need a receiving core. Exactly. I need the right coaching staff.
Yeah, the idea is with OKRs is it cascades down throughout the org. So everybody on every team can come up with their own OKR that supports their team's OKR, which supports their department's OKR, which supports the company's. And I have found in all these turnarounds, surprise, surprise, they discount too much. They have legacy IT, and their team and culture is just a wreck, right? There's no culture often. And they've just often had an environment where management didn't tell them much about what was going on. Everybody's in the dark. And so it's very eye-opening and empowering, I think, to come in with some goals. Like, this is what we're going to do in Q1. And this is how everybody's job is going to contribute to that.
Yeah.
And you instantly have some accountability within the team.
And I'm sure for the right team members that were there before when the culture was broken, when they get those OKRs and the clear communication and some transparency, the right players light up, right? And that's what they want. That's what they've been craving. There's probably also some people that are like, nah, I liked it the old way, right? But that's probably a good way to get them out the door because now they're no longer.
It's definitely a forcing function, and it's people self-select whether they want to be a part of it or not. And it's probably the most rewarding part of a turnaround for me is seeing those gems, who are out there on the team already and they've just been overlooked or, disempowered.
They just weren't performing because the culture wasn't right or because the expectations weren't right or they weren't empowered or they weren't given the tools. There were just all this wasted talent there.
Yeah.
But now they come alive with the right structure. I love that. One thing we kind of talked about in the prep that we didn't get to here, although we've circled around and touched on it a little bit, but you use a term called CVO a decent amount, and I know we have touched on it some, but what is CVO, and is there anything else we haven't covered that you consider in that process?
Yeah, I think in e-com, for a long time, we were focused on CRO, conversion rate optimization. Like, we just got to make the site convert. We got to A/B test everything, change colors, whatever. It's like focusing too much. You lose the forest for the trees, right? Like, it's focusing too much on the micro. And the bigger thing you need to optimize is for customer lifetime value, which is the aggregate profits you make off of every customer over time. That's CVO. It's customer value optimization. It just means like taking a step back and you're optimizing your funnel, all of your marketing to maximize customer value. So it's kind of getting back to what we were talking about earlier. Like you may have a certain promotion or a certain ad or a certain keyword group or something that's driving conversions, but unless you're measuring the long-term impact of that on customer lifetime value, you might be optimizing for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Right? You're optimizing for an ad that's certainly converting well, but oh, by the way, it's a 20% off ad. That's why it's converting so well. It doesn't mean we should put all our dollars behind that. There's this other ad over here that's showing a full margin product that's also, maybe the conversion rate's lower, but it's bringing in high quality customers who buy longer and it's contributing more to my bottom line. So that's kind of CVO in a nutshell.
I love it. Yeah, because we can get a little bit duped by CRO, right? I'm getting more conversions, more new customers, more this or that. But what if those customers aren't making me any money? What if that is a low quality customer, a customer that's not likely to return? And so looking at CVO, how does do cohort analysis, how does that play into this, or does it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things you probably want to start recording if you aren't. And it's typically like your attribution information's an obvious one. People get hung up on attribution, but it is good to record, say, last touch attribution for every order that comes in, first touch for every order that comes in. And then you can start doing some analysis and you'll start to see some differences like, hey, ad A brought in a very different kind of customer than ad B. So source, I think, is a big one. Product first purchased is another one. You start to see a difference. Bonobos sort of has this classic case that's out there where, the guys who came in and bought the suits first end up spending like $20,000 in their first year at Bonobos.
Wow.
And the guys who came in and bought the swimsuits first spend $36 and they're done. So I think that's another place you see the disparity in lifetime value is like that initial product purchased. So just different ways to kind of cross-cut your data and help you think about lifetime value.
And that makes a big difference. So what if I'm like, oh man, I've got, a 0.5% conversion rate on my suit promotions and my suit ads, but I got a 2% conversion on my swimsuit ads.
Right.
But then when you look at it, you realize, but the suit customer is worth 1,000x. Well, it doesn't matter, right? Then conversion rate is important. Like we still look at conversion rate, but it's an incomplete picture, right? It's just a metric. It's not the metric. Whereas CVO is arguably the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, and for a while you saw Bonobos did start putting the suits in the front of the store and doing things like I don't know if they define themselves as a suiting brand, but it was going that direction. But then you'd have Suit Supply comes along and just says, we're going to take that whole category and shopper away from you and kills it. Right. So I think there's something to that is like building a business around your best customers. I call them the whales.
The whales. Yeah, I love that. I heard that from you. I don't know anybody else who calls them that. I like that. I heard that maybe
to trademark it.
Yeah. Whales are your best customers. So yeah, identifying your whales, where do they come from? What's the first product they purchase? Right. What do they look like? Identify them and get more of them and treat them. Don't treat them the same as all your other customers, right? They're whales, they're VIPs, treat them like a VIP.
And the reason why you want to do that is because it's a hell of a lot easier to grow your business. At the end of the day, we all want growth. And here's the first eye-opening thing. And I've got some tutorial about this we could link to in the show notes, but it's convince yourself that you have different kinds of customers, that you have whales and minnows, that if you're like any other business I've ever seen, you probably have 20% of your customers drive 80% of the revenue and the profit, and the reverse. The other 80% are one-time buyers who drop nothing to the bottom line. So you can convince yourself of that. You can do it with your Shopify data, with your Klaviyo data. You can do it with a spreadsheet. But once you're convinced, the next sort of eye-opening fact is that the cost of acquisition of a of a whale is often the same as the cost of acquisition for a minnow. So just by spending the same dollars, like if you were to reorient that spend and instead of bringing in 80% minnows, like what if you could bring in 100% whales or even 50% whales?
Right.
Then you're growing, with the same spend. So that's sort of eye-opening to a lot of marketers.
I love it. So if you're doing these things, you're raising AOV, you're looking at LTV, you're maximizing customer value optimization. Now things can get a little more exciting at the customer acquisition side of things, especially if you know who to go after. But let's talk a little bit about then, and you teased it a little bit earlier, but PostPilot using postcards for new customer acquisition. I love new customer acquisition. I obviously do a lot with YouTube, one of the top spenders, do a lot with Google Ads and PMax and Amazon and stuff. So love new customer acquisition, but I think, postcard marketing for new customer acquisition, that's a channel probably most people aren't thinking about. So talk to us a little bit about that, new customer acquisition with postcards.
Yeah, for a year or so, we were retention only. And we'd say, we have 5,000 brands using the platform. We'd bring up the data and say, like, the average retention campaign, 5 to 10x ROAS. And people would yawn. They'd just be like, yeah, that's nice. But they all want acquisition. At the end of the day, everybody wants acquisition. So we knew we had to go there. And we've rolled it out. I mean, acquisition is 100 years old, right? Acquisition in direct mail. Like, that's how the catalog business worked. There are data sets out there that you can pull from that allow you to drop an acquisition campaign. And I think the part that we play is trying to make that user-friendly for all of us who are used to doing a lookalike on Facebook. It's the same process. Couple rules of thumb. Usually, you mentioned postcard acquisition. I would say usually when you do acquisition in direct mail, you want to present more of a selection. Because it is more costly than a Facebook ad, right? It costs something to send whatever it is, 40 cents, 72 cents, depending on the size you send out. But it's going to cost a little bit more to put it out there. So you want to make sure you present more products. More products to buy means higher conversion rates. And so we've got this catalog format, which is a big trifold where you can really put the breadth of your brand and offering on it. It's why people have done catalogs in the past, but a lot of issues with catalogs. They're expensive. They cost $200K for a drop. It takes 6 months to do it. You gotta do the photography. It's just like, I would experiment with it on a smaller format card, like a trifold, like our catalog. Spend a couple $100, couple $1,000 just testing into it. Play around with audience, just like Facebook. You play around with audiences, with offers. Eventually, when you have something that clicks, like, increase the volume, and it works.
I really like that. And catalog, is this another term you are looking to trademark?
We trademark catalogs. It's
That's awesome.
Big trifold.
It's a big trifold. Yeah, makes sense. And you're increasing the odds that I'm going to purchase. I think maybe in my mind, the only time you wouldn't want to do this is if, like, your business is essentially one core offer, like say the meal service companies or whatever, like a HelloFresh or something. It's essentially one offer. Maybe the number of meals is different or something. Maybe they wouldn't need it. But I think for most companies, catalog is going to be better because you increase the odds that someone's going to see the product that they want. Which makes a lot of sense. So kind of walk us through.
I should say before everybody asks me for a 10x ROAS on an acquisition campaign, I think.
Wait. You mean you can't get a 10x ROAS?
I can't guarantee it, unfortunately. It is, it's retention campaigns are 5 to 10x ROAS.
Totally.
Like if we feel very confident we could get anybody a return. We do retargeting in the middle. That's probably maybe 3x average retargeting. So if somebody hits your site, doesn't drop an email or a physical address, we can retarget them with a postcard. It's called Site Match. It's pretty cool. And then on the acquisition side, I'd say, 1.5 to 3 times ROAS. which for some brands they're thrilled at. There's some that do better than that. There's some that do worse, but maybe that's average.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I think that's what you see typically on top of funnel Facebook or top of funnel YouTube like that. It's going to be a lower ROAS, but one, there's going to be lift that's not measurable typically. It's going to feed the rest of the funnel, and if you're doing CVO, then maybe you can work with that 1.5 to 3x ROAS there. So talk to us a little bit about. I know you mentioned you can run lookalike audiences. You generate lookalike audiences that are direct mail based. What are some of the audience options, and how can we find buyers? Like, can you find audiences of other people who've purchased from Shopify stores or people that have purchased from other stores like yours? What are some of the opportunities there?
Yeah, I think what you might be talking about is a co-op where everybody sort of feeds their data into one pool and then you can mine it, right? We don't offer that. What we're talking about is more you get a lookalike off your best customers, and then you layer some sort of traditional direct mail attributes on top. And there are probably 1,000 of these, but it's like bought something at Walmart in the last 3 months, household income, gender, owns a pet. Like we've got an attribute for new moms or someone who had a child within the last X months, which is great for, baby brands. There's new mover data sets, right? That we only want to target people who moved within the last week. And that's great for furniture and mattresses and anybody who would, be involved with like a move. So you can do some interesting things. One of the applications we see a lot of is like a CPG brand that is launching in Target or launching in Whole Foods. And the way those launches work is they typically roll them out in a handful of stores as a test. And then it behooves that brand to increase store velocity so that they get rolled out nationwide. So those brands are leveraging their Shopify store, their data, and using our app to do a lookalike. And then they're layering, shopped at Whole Foods in the last X months on top of that. And so they can essentially drive a new prospecting audience to redeem and buy at a brick and mortar store to increase store velocity.
Love that. So they meet your lookalike audience criteria. They've been to Whole Foods in the last 3 months and bought something. Now we're sending them a postcard to go to Whole Foods and buy the product. It's really smart. We've done similar campaigns, obviously different mechanisms, but as we've had CPG brands or food brands that are in a Sprouts or a Whole Foods or a CVS or something like that, running targeted YouTube campaigns around those key markets because,
right.
Yeah, if you can perform really well in a couple of key markets, now those buyers are like, okay, let's get you in every store. Let's really push this. But I love that direct mail angle. Super, super smart. And one thing we got to mention, for anything top of funnel, there's always going to be like this halo effect, this lift. And maybe my favorite story, which I was a part of, was I believe Andrew Udarian got one of your postcards or one of PostPilot's postcards for Heart and Soil, which is like beef organ supplement, which sounds gross. But as you look at the research, one of the most nutrient-rich foods, peptides, all kinds of good stuff.
Anyway, liver.
Yeah, absolutely. So Udarian gets a postcard. He posts about it on LinkedIn, and you guys comment on it. You're looking at it. And I'm like, I like to experiment with health stuff, and I'm going through some pretty intense workouts right now. So I started reading, and I'm like, I think I'm going to buy this. So I did. So I'm on a subscription now with the company. So Udarian got the postcard.
We didn't get the attribution because
you didn't get the attribution. You can tell them
we should.
that it was because of the postcards why I'm now a subscriber and I'm enjoying it. So.
I was worried about that acquisition campaign because I think I love the guys at Heart and Soil.
Yeah,
I'm a consumer. They do fabulously well on retention. But then I'm thinking acquisition, like if you cold emailed or did a Facebook ad for organ supplements.
Some beef organs? Like
where is that actually going to resonate?
Yeah.
And then unlike, I don't know, a mattress, which everybody needs, or
exactly.
food in general.
Or something plant-based, which is what everybody thinks about,
Yeah, like those are hot now, and certainly apparel, if I know that your gender and could do apparel. But that one, I was surprised because I think Udarian wrote that whole piece without knowing or caring that it was PostPilot. It was just like his take on direct mail, but it was something I was able to flip to the Heart and Soil guys and be like, hey,
and they were like, ooh, I love it. So here's the next piece of that story,
right?
Which is super funny. So Drew, this has been amazing, super enlightening. If someone is listening to this, they're like, I gotta have more Drew Sanocki in my life. Follow Drew on LinkedIn, follow him on Twitter. But did I hear, is your podcast back? Is that true? Or is that a rumor?
Nerd Marketing's back.
Nerd Marketing is back.
Arguably better than ever.
Yeah. And is that you and Michael Epstein together?
Yeah, that's probably what makes it better is I have a co-host.
It's the Michael Epstein effect. He's making it better.
Keep me focused. And we've got some good guests. We talk a lot about exits and private equity backed businesses and how to sell, and I think we just tried to elevate it a little bit, elevate the conversation.
Cool. So Nerd Marketing, check that out. Check Drew out on the socials. And then if someone's like, okay, I'm ready to think more, talk more about direct mail, how can they learn more about PostPilot?
Drew@postpilot.com. Just shoot me an email. Happy to walk you through anything.
Look at that. The personal email of Drew Sanocki.
There you go.
How about that? That's awesome.
Don't abuse it.
Don't abuse it. Yeah, exactly. Don't try to sell him, organ pills. Oh, wait, because he already buys them, so he doesn't,
Yeah, I'm good there.
Awesome. Drew's been so much fun. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll have to do it again soon.
This is awesome, Brett. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And as always, thank you for tuning in. I would love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of on the show? If you've not left that review on iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast, would love it if you did that. And hey, if you know somebody who would benefit from this content, please share it with them. It'd make my day and probably make their day as well. And so with that, until next time, thank you for listening.